What would you do if you walked into a forest right now and tried to approach a wild animal? Not a squirrel in a city park, not a bird at a feeder, a truly wild creature that has never been fed by human hands. The answer is simple. It would run, or fly, or freeze completely still and hope you somehow fail to notice it standing right in front of you. But here is the question that should keep you up at night. Why? Why does almost every wild animal on this planet treat you like the most dangerous thing it has ever seen? I want to tell you a story. It happened to a hiker in the Scottish Highlands about 3 years ago. She was walking alone through a field of tall grass when she noticed something small and brown about 10 feet ahead of her. A wild rabbit. It was sitting perfectly still in a patch of morning sunlight, ears rotating like tiny satellite dishes scanning for signals. She stopped walking. She did not move. She barely breathed, and the rabbit did not run. Instead, it did something far more unsettling. It froze, completely. Its eyes locked onto her face, and its entire body went rigid as if someone had pressed a pause button on a living thing. For nearly 30 seconds, neither of them moved. The hiker later said it felt like the longest half-minute of her life. She could see the rabbit's sides moving rapidly with panicked breathing, but otherwise it was a statue. Then she shifted her weight slightly, and the rabbit exploded into motion, vanishing into the grass so fast she almost doubted it had ever been there at all. That moment stuck with her. She told me about it years later, still puzzled by the intensity of the rabbit's response. She had not chased it. She had not made any threatening movements. She was just a person standing in a field. So why did that small creature react as if it had just encountered death itself? The answer to that question will take us through evolutionary history, across continents, into the biology of fear, and ultimately back to a very uncomfortable truth about what we are and what we have done to this planet. Let us start with something that sounds almost like science fiction. Fear can be inherited, not learned from parents through experience, but written directly into genetic code and passed down through generations like eye color or blood type. For thousands of years, humans have been hunting animals. We pursued them with spears and arrows. We set traps. We coordinated in groups to drive entire herds off cliffs. And the animals that did not fear us, they died. They were the easy targets. The ones that stood their ground or approached out of curiosity became meals, their genetic lines ending in our cooking fires. But the cautious ones, the rabbits that froze at the first sign of an upright figure, the deer that bolted at the snap of a twig, the birds that took flight when they saw movement on the horizon, those animals survived long enough to reproduce. They passed their wariness to their offspring, who passed it to theirs, generation after generation for 10,000 years or more. Scientists call this selection pressure. We were the pressure. And what we selected for without ever intending to was fear. Fear of us specifically. Today, researchers have documented this inherited caution in species that have never encountered a human before in their individual lives. The first time they see us, they already know to run. It is not magic. It is evolution working exactly as it always does. The survivors teach us what survival requires, and what survival has required for countless generations is staying far away from anything that walks on two legs. To understand why animals fear us, we need to understand how they think about threats in general. Imagine you are a deer standing at the edge of a meadow. Your brain is running a constant calculation, a kind of biological risk assessment that never stops. Every sound, every movement, every shadow is data being processed against a single question. Is that thing going to kill me? This is the fight or flight response, and it is one of the oldest systems in vertebrate brains. When a deer detects a potential predator, its amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in its brain, triggers a cascade of hormones. Adrenaline floods its system. Its heart rate spikes. Blood flows away from digestive organs and toward muscles. All of this happens in fractions of a second, long before conscious thought can intervene. The deer does not decide to run. It simply runs. The decision was made millions of years ago by ancestors who survived because they did not waste time thinking. Birds do this too. So do rabbits, squirrels, mice, and nearly every prey animal you can name. And here is what makes humans special. We trigger this response at greater distances than almost any other predator. A deer will let a wolf approach within about 50 meters before fleeing. But humans, studies have shown deer will bolt when humans are still over 100 meters away, more than twice the distance. Something about us sets off alarms earlier and louder than anything else in the natural world. Part of the answer involves our shape. Stand up right now if you can. Look at your silhouette. You are tall and narrow, balanced on two legs, with your head at the very top like a periscope scanning the horizon. This shape is extremely rare in nature. Almost nothing else moves around on two legs the way we do. And that rarity is precisely the problem. Prey animals have evolved to recognize predator shapes, profiles that signal danger. Four-legged hunters like wolves and lions have distinct silhouettes that trigger fear responses. But the human silhouette is different. It is associated not just with hunting, but with the most successful hunting the animal kingdom has ever seen. Researchers have tested this by placing cardboard cutouts in fields and forests and observing how animals react. Two-legged upright shapes cause significantly more avoidance behavior than four-legged shapes of the same size. Even more remarkably, this effect occurs in animals from continents with very different predator populations. African antelopes, European deer, North American elk, they all show heightened fear of bipedal silhouettes. It is as if the shape of a standing human has become a universal symbol of danger, written into the recognition systems of prey animals worldwide. And the most haunting part? A human does not even need to be moving. A person standing completely still in a field is enough to trigger panic. Just the shape. Just the outline. That is all it takes. But what happens when that shape never appears? What happens when animals evolve for millions of years on islands where humans do not exist? The answer gives us the clearest proof of what our presence has done. Consider the dodo bird. Before humans arrived on the island of Mauritius in the late 1500s, the dodo had no natural predators. It was a large, flightless bird that had never needed to fear anything in its environment. When Dutch sailors landed on the island, the dodos did not run. They walked right up to the humans, curious about these strange new creatures. Within less than a century, the dodo was extinct. The same pattern played out on islands around the world. The Galápagos Islands are famous for animals that show almost no fear of humans. Marine iguanas sit calmly while tourists take photographs inches from their faces. Giant tortoises lumber past hiking trails without changing speed. Blue-footed boobies perform their mating dances as if the watching crowds do not exist. Charles Darwin himself noted this phenomenon when he visited the Galápagos in 1835. He observed that birds would perch on his hat and could be pushed off branches with the barrel of a gun before they would fly away. They simply had no framework for understanding humans as threats. This fearlessness is beautiful to witness, but it is also a kind of time capsule. It shows us what the world might have looked like before we taught every creature on it to be afraid of us. Animals do not only see us, they hear us and smell us too, and these senses often detect danger before vision ever can. The sound of human voices carries frequencies that are distinct from most natural noises. Our speech patterns, our footstep rhythms, even the subtle sounds of our clothing rustling, all of these are cataloged in the threat databases of wild animals. In 2017, researchers in South Africa conducted a remarkable experiment. They placed speakers in the bush and played recordings of different sounds to observe how wildlife reacted. They played lion roars. They played the sounds of hunting dogs. And they played recordings of humans having casual conversations. The results were not even close. Animals fled from the human voices at nearly twice the rate they fled from lion roars. Let that sink in. African wildlife, animals that share their habitat with lions, one of the most fearsome predators on Earth, are more afraid of the sound of people talking than the sound of an actual lion. Smell tells a similar story. Humans have a distinct chemical signature. Our sweat, our breath, the products we use on our skin and hair, all of these leave traces that animals can detect from remarkable distances. Deer hunters have known this for centuries, which is why they go to such elaborate lengths to mask their scent. But it is not just deer. Studies show that rodents will avoid areas where human scent has been present for days or even weeks afterward. The smell of a person lingers like a warning sign that does not fade. Given all of this, you might think that animals will always fear us. that it is permanent, written so deeply into their biology that it can never change. But look at a pigeon in any major city. Look at the raccoons raiding trash cans in suburban neighborhoods. Look at the foxes trotting down London streets at midnight as if they own the place. These animals have changed. They have recalibrated their fear. Urban wildlife exists in a strange middle ground. They have not lost their fear of humans entirely, but they have learned to modulate it based on context. A city squirrel knows that a person on a park bench is probably not a threat. It might even approach hoping for food. But try to grab that same squirrel, and you will see how quickly the ancient fear returns. Scientists debate what exactly is happening here. Some argue it is true habituation, a gradual dampening of fear responses through repeated neutral encounters. Others suggest it is more like risk assessment. Animals learning that humans in certain contexts, in certain places, behaving in certain ways, are statistically unlikely to cause harm. The evidence suggests both processes are occurring. Urban animals show different stress hormone levels than their rural counterparts. Their brains actually change in response to city environments. This is evolution happening in real time, compressed into decades rather than millennia. We created cities, and now we are watching animals adapt to survive in them. So where does all of this leave us? I started with a rabbit frozen in fear in a Scottish field, and I want to end by asking what that moment really means. The fear of humans is not just a quirk of animal behavior, it is a record, a biological document of everything our species has done since we first picked up tools and learned to hunt. Every deer that bolts at our approach is carrying genetic memories of ancestors that died at our hands. Every bird that takes flight when we walk beneath its tree is acting on instructions written in blood over thousands of years. We are, by every measurable standard, the most dangerous animal that has ever existed on this planet. Not because we are the strongest, not because we have the sharpest teeth or claws, but because we are everywhere, because we are persistent, because we coordinate and plan and remember, and because we have been killing other species with extraordinary efficiency for longer than recorded history. The fear that wild animals feel when they see us is not irrational. It is the most rational response imaginable. It is the only response that makes sense given what we are. And there is something almost sacred about recognizing that. When you walk into a forest and every living thing goes silent or flees, you are not experiencing rejection. You are experiencing truth. The truth of what humanity has been to the natural world. Maybe that truth can also be the beginning of something else. Maybe understanding why animals fear us is the first step toward becoming something they do not have to fear quite so much. If this video made you think about the world differently, even for just a moment, I would appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button and liked the video. And I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment with a wild animal that stayed with you? A moment of connection? Or a moment when you felt that ancient fear directed right at you? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.